someone to love. I'm where it's at.
Ladies and gentlemen, could we please ask you to take your seats? Thank you.
And at night when your feet are cold, I'll be there with a whole lot of soul. I'm where it's at. Make me ready. Come on and tell me it's at. Make me ready. When your folks tell you that you're no good, I'm where it's at. Where it's at. And when you feel that you're misunderstood, I'm where it's at, girl, now. Where it's at. And when everything seems to go wrong, just ring or leave my telephone. I'm where it's at. Where it's at. Take me ready. Come on and tell me it's at. Make me, make me. Well, it's true that I might be poor, and my folks don't have a whole lot of dough. Just so what if you don't just like them? I wanna stick by you until the end. I'm where it's at, my baby. Come on and take me, my darling.
Ladies and gentlemen, could we please ask you to take your seats? Thank you.
Come on and tell me it's at. I've got all my best to 100% for you. When tears fall like rain, my love will be what you think, what you feel now, what you know to be real. What you think, I think I love you. What you feel now, I really need you. What you know to be real. Ooh, your love's for real now. You know that your love is my love is your love, our love is here to stay. What you think, I love you. What you feel now, I need you. What you know to be real.
Ladies and gentlemen, could we please ask you to take your seats? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, could we please ask you to take your seats? Thank you.
On skills that alone don't count. And you know, without the sweat and toil of mine, it wouldn't be worth a dime. You got to live and give, share and care, really put some love in the air. Oh, but when your neighbor's down, try to pick him up. Nobody can live in this bed.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rohi Mullick, and this is my first time at the Labour Party conference. I'm not going to lie to you, I can't believe I'm standing here. I'm a bit nervous. So I grew up in Islington North, and I knew Jeremy Corbyn before he was famous. I know him from cycling down my street on the way to our school summer fair. I know him from countless campaigns, from defending our local hospital, the Whittington, to marching for peace and justice. And I know him from the countless times he has helped parents of my friends on issues from asylum cases to rogue landlords. Jeremy has always stood up for everyone in Islington North with such commitment and dedication. Like Jeremy, the NHS and justice for refugees are particularly close to my heart. My Abu, my dad, was a political prisoner on death row in Pakistan, and he escaped to this country on a false passport, arrived without a word of English, and was shown the best of British humanity with a new start and hope. My dad was given great opportunities by this country, and he took them, training and qualifying as a doctor with our NHS, and spending the last 25 years as a committed community GP. He's a great inspiration to me, and last week I enrolled at Manchester Medical School because I, like my dad, I tell you this story because my background leads me to always see the best in people and what they can contribute and achieve, a message that this summer has resonated with so many people. When Jeremy announced he was standing, I was excited. It energized me and my family, but then I realized it was much bigger than that. Friends of mine who had never mentioned politics were starting to debate. I could hear people in the local park talking about Jeremy Corbyn, and this wasn't just us in Islington North, it was happening all over the country. I feel very lucky to have had a part in an exciting, inspiring, and positive campaign. It brought together such an incredibly diverse crowd, all united by the idea that politics could be different. That experience has been life-changing. At my first conference, it's been so lovely to be warmly welcomed by so many people, new members, returning members, and members who've been coming here for over 40 years. It's been a privilege to engage and debate with so many. I'm so proud to be a part of this amazing party, a party that has achieved so much for ordinary people and still has so much more to do. I believe that this summer has given us fresh energy to do what we do best, stand up against injustice. So it gives me enormous pride to introduce my MP and the leader of our Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn.
Any chance we could start the speech? Any chance we could start? Friends, thank you so much for that incredible welcome. And Rohit, thank you so much for the way you introduced me and the way your family and you have contributed so much to our community. That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much. I am truly delighted to be invited to make this speech today because for the past 2 weeks, as you've probably known, I've had a very easy, relaxing time. Hardly anything of any importance at all has happened to me. But you might have noticed in some of the newspapers, they've taken a bit of an interest in me. I haven't read them all, but some of the things I've read are this, that according to one headline, Jeremy Corbyn welcomed the prospect of an asteroid wiping out humanity. Now, asteroids are pretty controversial. And it's not the kind of policy I'd want this party to adopt without a full debate in conference. So can we have the debate later in the week? Another newspaper went even further and printed a mini novel that predicted how life would look if I were Prime Minister. It's pretty scary, I have to tell you. It tells us football's Premier League would collapse. Now, that makes actually a lot of sense because it's quite difficult to understand how all our brilliant top 20 teams in the Premiership would cope with playing after an asteroid had wiped out humanity. So that's a no-no for sure. And then the Daily Express informed readers that my I'm not quite sure how many greats there are here, but I think there's 3 or 4, great-great-great-grandfather, who I'd never heard of before, was a very unpleasant sort of chap who apparently was involved in running a workhouse. And I want to take this opportunity to apologise for not doing the decent thing and going back in time and having a chat with him about his appalling behaviour. But then there's another journalist who has obviously been hanging around my street a great deal, who quotes, "Neighbours often see him," that's me, "riding a Chairman Mao-style bicycle." Now, less thorough journalists might have referred to it as just a bicycle, but no. So we have to conclude that whenever we see somebody on a bicycle from now on, there goes another supporter of Chairman Mao. Thus, the Daily Express have changed history. But seriously, conference, it's a huge honour and a privilege for me to speak to you today as leader of the Labour Party, to welcome all our new members. More than 160,000 have joined the Labour Party. And more than 50,000 have joined since the declaration of the leadership and deputy leadership election results. And I'm very proud to say, in my own constituency, our membership as of last night had just gone over 3,000 individual members and 2,000 registered supporters. 5,000 people in my constituency. I want to say, first of all, a huge thank you to all of the people of my constituency of Islington North and Islington North Labour Party for their friendship, support, and all the activities we've done and all the help and support they've given me in the past few weeks. I'm truly grateful to them for you. Thank you very much indeed to everyone in Islington. But above all, I want to welcome all our new members to this party, everyone who's joined this party in this great endeavour to change our party, change our country, change our politics and change the way we do things. And above all, I want to speak to everyone in Britain about the tasks Labour has now turned to, opposing and fighting the Tory government and the huge damage it's doing, and developing Labour's alternative. Renewing our policies so we can reach out across the country and win next year, starting in Wales, in Scotland, in London, in Bristol, and in local government elections across Britain. And I want to repeat the thanks I gave after my election to all the people who have served the Labour Party so well in recent months and recent years. Firstly, to Ed Miliband for the leadership he gave our party. For the courage and the dignity he showed in the face of tawdry media attacks, and also for the contribution I know he'll be making in the future, especially on the vital issues of environment and climate change. Thank you, Ed. Thank you so much for all you've done. And to Harriet Harman, not just for her leadership and service, but for her commitment and passion for equality and the rights of women, the way she's changed attitudes and law through her courage and determination. The Equalities Act is one of many testaments to her huge achievements. Thank you, Harriet, for everything you've done and everything you continue to do. I also want to say a big thank you to Ian McNichol, our General Secretary, and all our party staff in London, in Newcastle, and all over the country for their dedication and hard work during the general election campaign and the leadership campaigns, and also to all the staff and volunteers who are doing such a great job here this week in Brighton at this incredible conference we're holding. Thank you to all of them. They're part of our movement and part of our conference. And also, I want to say a special thank you to the fellow candidates who contested the leadership election for this party. It was an amazing 3-month experience for all of us. I want to say thank you to Liz Kendall for her passion, her independence, her determination, and her great personal friendship to me throughout the campaign. Liz, thank you so much for that and all you contribute to the party. And I want to say thank you to Yvette Cooper for the remarkable way in which she's helped to change public attitudes towards the refugee crisis, and now for leading a task force on how Britain and Europe can do more and better to respond to this crisis. Yvette, thank you for that. And to Andy Burnham, our new Shadow Home Secretary, for everything he did as Health Secretary to defend our NHS health service free at the point of use as a human right for all. I want to say thank you to all three for the spirit and friendship with which they contested the election. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Yvette. Thank you, Andy. I want to thank all those who took part in that election at the hustings and rallies all across the country. Our party at its best, democratic, inclusive and growing. And I've got new people to thank as well. The talented colleagues working with me in the Shadow Cabinet, Labour's front bench, an inclusive team from all political wings of our party, from every part of our country. It gives us the right foundation for the open debate our party must now have about the future. I'm not a leader who wants to impose leadership lines all the time. I do not believe any one of us has a monopoly on wisdom and ideas. We all have ideas and a vision of how things can be better. I want open debate in our party and our movement. I will listen to everyone. Because I firmly believe leadership is about listening. We'll reach out to our new members and supporters, involve people in our debates on policy, and then our party, as a whole, will decide. I've been given a huge mandate by 59% of the electorate who supported my campaign. I believe it's a mandate for change, and I want to explain how. First and foremost, it's a vote for change in the way we do politics, in the Labour Party and in the country. Politics that's kinder, more inclusive, bottom-up, not top-down, in every community and workplace, not just in Westminster. Real debate. Real debate, not necessarily message discipline all the time, but above all, straight talking, honest. That's what the politics we're going to have in the future in this party and this movement. And it was a vote for change in our party as well. Let me be clear. Under my leadership, and we discussed this yesterday in conference, Labour will be challenging austerity. It will be unapologetic about reforming our economy. To challenge inequality and protect workers, better. And internationally, we'll be a voice for engagement in partnership with those who share our values, supporting the authority of international law and international institutions, not acting against them. The global environment is in peril. We need to be part of an international movement to cut emissions and pollution, to combat the environmental danger to our planet. These are crucial issues, but I also want to add this. I've been standing up for human rights and challenging oppressive regimes for 30 years as a backbench MP. And before that, as an individual activist, just like everyone else in this hall. Just because I've become the leader of this party, I'm not going to stop standing up on those issues or being that activist. So my first message is to David Cameron. I say to him now, a little message from our conference. I hope he's listening. You never know. Intervene now, personally, with the Saudi Arabian regime to stop the beheading and crucifixion of Ali Mohammed al-Nimr, who is threatened with the death penalty for taking part in a demonstration at the age of 17. And, while you're about it, terminate that bid made by our Ministry of Justice to provide prison services for Saudi Arabia, which would be required to carry out the sentence that would be put down on Muhammad Ali Anamar. We have to be very clear about what we stand for in human rights, because a refusal to stand up is the kind of thing that really damages Britain's standing in the world. I have huge, undying admiration for human rights defenders all over the world, and I've met hundreds of these very brave people during my lifetime working on international issues. And I want to say a special mention to one group who've campaigned successfully for the release of a British resident, Shakar Amir, from Guantanamo Bay. This was a campaign of ordinary people like you and me, standing on cold, drafty streets for many hours over many years. Together, we secured this particular piece of justice, because that is how our human rights were won, by ordinary people coming together, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. That is how our rights and our human rights have been won. The Tories want to repeal the Human Rights Act. Some want to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. And just to show what they're made of, their new trade union bill, which we're opposing very strongly in the House and the country, is also a fundamental attack on human rights and is in breach of both the ILO and the European Convention on Human Rights. Now, I've been listening to a lot of advice about how I do this job, and there's plenty of advice around, believe me. And actually, I quite like that. I welcome that. I like to listen to advice, particularly the advice which is unwelcome, because that is often the best advice you get. The people that tell you, yes, you're doing great, you're brilliant, you're wonderful. Fine, thank you, but what have I done wrong? Oh, I haven't got time for that. But I want to listen to people, but I want to do things differently as well. I've been told, never repeat your opponent's lines in a political debate. But, and I take a but here, I want to tackle one thing head on. The Tories talk about economic and family security being at risk from us, the Labour Party, and perhaps even more particularly from me. I say this to them: how dare these people talk about security for families for families and people in Britain? Where's the security for families shuttled around from one private rented sector flat to another on 6 months tenancies, with children endlessly having to change schools? Where's the security for those tenants afraid to ask a landlord to make a repair to a dangerous structure in their own homes because they might be evicted because they've gone to the local authority to seek the justice they're entitled to? Where's the security? Where's the security for carers struggling to support older family members as Tory-inspired local government cuts destroy social care and take away the help they're needed? Where's the security for young people starting out on careers knowing they are locked out of any prospect of ever buying their own home by soaring house prices? Where's the security also for families driven away from their children's schools and communities and family ties by these welfare cuts? And where's the security for hundreds of thousands who've taken on self-employment with uncertain income, no sick pay, no maternity pay, no paid leave, no pension, now facing the loss of tax credits that keep them and their family afloat? There's no security for 2.8 million households in Britain forced into debt by stagnating wages and the Tory record of the longest fall in living standards since records began. And that's really the nub of it. Tory economic failure. An economy that works for the few, not the many. Manufacturing still in decline. Look at the Tory failure to intervene and support our steel industry, as the Italian government has done. So, as we did yesterday in conference, we stand with the people on Teesside fighting for their jobs, for their industry and their community. And whilst the company has said it will mothball the plant and lay the workers off, therefore it is not too late now, again, to call on the Prime Minister, even at this very late stage, this 12th hour, step in and defend those people. Other governments like the Italian government have done the same. Why can't the British government? What is wrong with them? There's an investment crisis. There's a big investment crisis in Britain. We're at the bottom of the international league table. Well, not quite just at the bottom. We're just below Madagascar and just above El Salvador. So we're doing quite well. And we have a balance of payments deficit of £100 billion last year, loading our economy and every one of us with unsustainable debt for the future. And the shocks in the world markets this summer have shown what a dangerous and fragile state the world economy is in, and how ill-prepared the Tories have left us to face another crisis. It hasn't been growing exports and a stronger manufacturing sector that have underpinned the feeble economic recovery. The only thing is house price inflation, asset inflation, more private debt. We have an economy that's unbalanced, unsustainable, and frankly dangerous to the security of people of this country. That's the real risk to us all. And think of the people who've had to stretch to take on mortgages. People who've only been able to keep their families afloat by relying on credit cards and payday loans, fearful of how they will cope with a rise in interest rates. It's not acceptable. The Tories' austerity is the outdated and utterly failed approach of the past. So it's for us. It's for us, for Labour, to develop our forward-looking alternative. That's what John McDonnell started to do in his excellent speech to conference yesterday. At the heart of it is investing for the future. Every mainstream economist will tell you that with interest rates so low, now is the time for public investment in our infrastructure. Investment in council housing and for affordable homes and to rent and to buy. John Healey's plan for 100,000 new council and housing association homes a year to tackle the housing crisis, drive down the spiralling housing benefit bill, and so actually make a profit for the taxpayer. A profit for the taxpayer because the benefit bill falls when the cost of housing falls. It's quite simple, actually, and quite a good idea. We also need investment in fast broadband to support new high-technology jobs. We need a national investment bank to support real investment in our infrastructure, to provide finance to small and medium-sized firms that our banks continue to starve of the money they need to grow. We need a Green New Deal, investing in renewable energy and energy conservation to tackle the threat of climate change. The Tories, of course, are selling off the Green Investment Bank. They're simply not interested in this. This is the only way for a strong economic future for this country that is sustainable, that turns around the terrible trade deficit, that supports high-growth firms and businesses, that provides real economic security for our people. The economy of the future depends on the investment we make today in infrastructure, skills and schools. And in that, I want to say I'm delighted that Lucy Powell, our new Shadow Education Secretary, has already set out how the education of every child and the quality of every school counts. Every school accountable to local government through local education authorities. Not bringing back selection, because we have aspirations for all children, not just the few. Now, my first public engagement as Labour leader came within a couple of hours of being elected. And I was proud to go across to Parliament Square to speak to the Refugees Are Welcome rally in central London, because I wanted to send out a message of the kind of politics we're pursuing and a caring society we want to achieve. I've been inspired by the people across this country, making collections for refugees in Calais, donating to charities, the work of Citizens UK to involve whole communities in this effort. These refugees are victims of war. Many, the victims of the brutal conflict in Syria. It's a huge crisis, the worst humanitarian crisis in Europe since the Second World War. And globally, it's the biggest refugee crisis there's ever been. But the scale of the response from our government, from Europe, and from the wealthier parts of the international community simply isn't enough. Now, I do welcome the aid the government has given to refugee camps, especially in the Lebanon. But we all know much more must and should, and I hope will be done. Because it's a crisis of human beings just like you and just like me, looking for security and looking for safety. Let's reach out the hand of humanity and friendship to them. Now, let me say something about national security. The best way to protect the British people against the threats we face to our safety at home and abroad is to work to resolve conflict. That isn't easy, but it is unavoidable if we want real security. Our British values are internationalist and universal. They are not limited by borders. Yes, we do need a strong military, modern military and security forces to keep us safe, and to take a lead in humanitarian and peacekeeping missions, working with and strengthening the United Nations. On my first day in Parliament as leader of the party, after Prime Minister's question time, it was a privilege to meet the soldiers and medics who did such remarkable work tackling the Ebola crisis in Sierra Leone. Well done, all of them. There is no contradiction between working for peace across the world and doing what is necessary to keep us safe. Today, we face very different threats from the Cold War time, which ended 30 years ago. That's why I've asked our Shadow Defence Secretary, Maria Eagle, to lead a debate and review about how we deliver that strong, modern, effective protection for the people of Britain. But there's one thing I want to make my own position on absolutely clear, and I believe I have a mandate from my election on it. I don't believe that £100 billion spent on a new generation of nuclear weapons, taking up a quarter of our defence budget, is the right way forward. I believe that Britain, I believe that our country should honour our obligations under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and take a lead in making progress towards international nuclear disarmament. But in developing our policy through the review, we must make sure that all the jobs and skills of everyone in every aspect of the defence industry are fully protected and fully utilised, so that we gain from this, we don't lose from this. To me, that is very important. And on our foreign policy, we need to learn lessons from the recent past. It didn't help our national security that at the same time, some years ago, when I was protesting outside the Iraqi embassy about Saddam Hussein's brutality and use of chemical weapons, Tory ministers were secretly conniving with illegal arms sales to his regime. It didn't help our national security when we went to war with Iraq in defiance of the United Nations on a false prospectus. It didn't help our national security to endure the loss of hundreds of brave British soldiers in that war while making no proper preparation for what to do after the fall of that regime. Nor does it help our national security to give such fawning and uncritical support to regimes I mentioned only two, but there are many I could mention, such as Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, who abuse their own citizens, repress democratic rights. These are issues we have to stand up on and also recognise, in some cases, they're using British weapons in the assault on Yemen at the present time. We have got to be clear about where our objectives are. But there is a recent object lesson in how real leadership can resolve conflicts, prevent war, and build real security. It's the leadership, the clever and difficult diplomacy that's been shown by Barack Obama and others in reaching this historic deal with Iran. A deal that opens the way for new diplomatic efforts to resolve the conflict in Syria. The scale of the destruction and suffering in Syria is truly dreadful. More than 250,000 people have been killed. More than 10 million driven from their homes. I yield to no one in my opposition to the foul and despicable crimes committed by ISIL and by the Assad government, including barrel bombs being dropped on civilian targets. We all want all of the atrocities to stop and the Syrian people be able to return home and be free to determine their own destiny. But the answer to this complex and tragic conflict can't simply be found in a few more bombs. I agree with Paddy Ashdown when he says that military strikes against ISIL aren't succeeding, not because we don't have enough high explosives, because they do not have a diplomatic strategy on Syria. That's the challenge for leadership now, for us, for David Cameron. The clever, patient, difficult diplomacy this country and others need to play a leading role in. That's why Hilary Benn and I together are calling for a new United Nations Security Council resolution that can underpin a political solution to the crisis. I believe the UN might yet manage to bring about a process that leads to an end in the violence in Syria. Yesterday's meeting in New York was very important and went a long way towards achieving that. We wish it well. We want peace for the people of Syria and indeed the people of the whole region. I have another important message for everyone here today. People recognise what's changed in our party, recognise what's changed in British politics, and how fundamental that change is. What happened this summer with the leadership election was nothing short of a political earthquake. According to the script, socialist and social democratic parties were in decline. Social democracy itself was exhausted, dead on its feet. Yet something new, invigorating, popular, and authentic has exploded. To understand this, all of us have to share our ideas and contributions. Our common project must be embrace an emergence of a modern left movement to harness people into building a society for the majority. Now, some of the media commentators who spent years complaining about how few people have engaged with political parties have sneered at our huge increase in membership. If these people were sports reporters writing about a football team, they'd be saying this: they've had a terrible summer. They've got 160,000 new fans. Season tickets are sold out. The new supporters are young and optimistic. I don't know how this club is going to get through this crisis. We celebrate the enthusiasm of so many people, old and young, from all communities joining our party, in every part of the country, joining Labour as members and supporters. And we need to change in response to this movement. Our new members want to be active and be involved. They want to have a say in Labour Party policies. They want to lead local and national campaigns against injustice and the dreadful impact of Tory austerity. Want to work in local communities to make people's lives better. They don't want to do things the old way. Young people and older people are fizzing with ideas. Let's give them the space for that fizz to explode into the joy we want of a better society. They want a new politics of engagement and involvement. Many of our new members are already very active in their communities, in voluntary organisations and in local campaigns. And we've convinced them to take a further step and join our party. What a tremendous opportunity for Labour to be at the centre and the hub of every community, in every town, city and village in this country. Together, we can make a very big difference to our society. To debate, to build is part of it, to develop friendships and set up new community projects. But above all, to explain and talk to their neighbours about politics, about changing Britain for the better. But it's going to mean quite a lot of changes for some of us from the way we've done our politics in the past. Our new deputy leader, Tom Watson, is well up for that challenge. He's leading the charge and leading the change of a much greater use of digital media as a key resource. That is the way of communication. It is not just through broadsheet newspapers or tabloids. It's social media that really is the point of communication for the future. We've got to get that. But I want to make a firm commitment to people who join our party that it's you who will have the real say, the final say in deciding policies of our party. No one, not me as leader, not the shadow cabinet, not the Parliamentary Labour Party, is going to impose policy or have a veto. The media commentariat simply don't understand it. They report disagreements as splits, agreement as compromise, or concessions as capitulation. No, sorry, commentariat, this is grown-up, real politics, where real people debate real issues. We take a decision and we go forward together. We look to persuade each other. On occasions, we might agree to even disagree. It is not the end of the world. But whatever the outcome, we stand together, united as Labour, to put forward a better way to the misery on offer from the Conservatives and their allies. That is the function of Labour. There's another important thing about how we're going to do this. It's a vital part of our new politics. I want to repeat what I said at the start of the leadership election. I do not believe in personal abuse of any sort. Treat people with respect. Treat people as you wish to be treated yourself. Listen to their views. Agree or disagree, but have that debate. There's going to be no rudeness from me. Maya Angelou, brilliant writer, said this: "You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them." Wonderful words from Maya Angelou. I want a kinder politics, a more caring society. Don't let them reduce you to believing in anything less. So I say to all activists, whether Labour or not, cut out the personal abuse, cut out the cyberbullying, and especially the misogynistic abuse online, and let's get on with bringing real values back into politics. I haven't finished. So, what are our first big campaigns? I want to start with a very fundamental issue about democratic rights in Britain. Just before Parliament rose for the summer, the Tories sneaked out a plan to strike millions of people off the electoral register this December. Very clever. a year earlier than the Independent Electoral Commission had advised them to do. What it means is this, listen carefully, 2 million people could lose their right to vote. That's 400,000 in London, 70,000 in Glasgow, thousands, every town, city, village and hamlet all across the country. Overwhelmingly, they're students, they're people in insecure accommodation, short-stay private lets. We know why the Tories are doing it. They want to gerrymander next year's mayoral election in London by denying hundreds of thousands of Londoners their right to vote. They want to do the same for the Assembly elections in Wales, and they want to gerrymander electoral boundaries across the whole country by ensuring the new reduced House of Commons boundaries will be decided on the basis of the missing millions from the voters' register when the Boundary Commission starts its work next April. So, conference, we've got to do our best to stop them. We'll highlight the issue in Parliament, of course, and outside. We'll work with councils all across the country to get people back on the register. But I make this appeal to you. From today, from now, our party, our Labour Party, starts a nationwide campaign for all our members to work in every town and city, every university, as students start the new term, to stop the Tory gerrymandering, to get people on the electoral register. I know this is hard work. Before I became an MP, I was agent in Hornsey constituency for 10 years, and I know how hard and vital that work is. And we're going to do it. But these days, we've got new resources. The power of social media, the power of our huge membership. Conference, let's get to it and get those people on the register to give us those victories, but also to get fairness within our society. And friends, we need to renew our party in Scotland. I want to pay a big tribute to our leader in Scotland, Kezia Dugdale, and her MSPs. I know that people in Scotland have been disappointed by the Labour Party. I know you feel we lost our way. I agree with you. Kezia has asked people to take another look at the Labour Party, and that's what I want people across Scotland to do. Under Kezia and my leadership, it will change. We will learn the lessons of the past. We will again make Labour the great fighting force you expect us to be. We need to be investing in skills, investing in our young people. And, strong message here, not cutting student numbers, giving young people real hope and real opportunity. Conference, it is Labour that is the progressive voice for Scotland. There's another big campaign we need to lead. David Cameron's attack on the living standards of low-paid workers and their families through the assault on tax credit. First, remind people over and over again that David Cameron pledged during the election not to cut child tax credits. On the Question Time Leaders debate, he said he had rejected child tax credit cuts. It's a shocking, broken promise, and the Tories voted it through in Parliament just 2 weeks ago. How can it be right that a single mother, as a part-time nurse, earning just £18,000 per year, to lose £2,000 to this broken promise? Some working families losing £3,500 a year to the same broken promise. How can it be right or fair to break this promise whilst at the same time handing out an inheritance tax cut to the 60,000 wealthiest families in the country? See the contrast. So, we'll fight this every inch of the way. And we'll campaign at the workplace, in every community, against this Tory broken promise, and to expose the absurd lie, and it is a lie, that the Tories are on the side of working people, that they're giving Britain a pay rise. It was one of the proudest moments of my life when, cycling home from Parliament at 5 o'clock in the morning, having voted for the national minimum wage legislation to go through. And of course, it's good to see a minimum wage. But the phony rebranding of it as a living wage doesn't do anyone any good. The Institute of Fiscal Studies has shown that Cameron's broken promise means millions of workers are still left far worse off. I know there's a big British majority for building a more equal society, for eliminating poverty and homelessness. We're a rich country. These things are not necessary or inevitable. They can and must be changed. I travelled the country throughout the leadership campaign, and it was wonderful to see the diversity of all people in this country and the way that fundamentally most people get along together. And that's now being reflected in our membership of this party, with more black, Asian and ethnic minority members joining our party. They are very, very welcome, and we want many more members too. Even more inspiring is the unity and unanimity of their values. I believe in coming together, we achieve more than we can do on our own. Basically, it's about fair play for all. It's an old fundamental, really. Solidarity and not walking by on the other side of the street while people are in trouble. Respect for other people's point of view. It's that sense of fair play, these shared majority values in Britain, that are a fundamental reason why I love this country and its people. These are the values that I was elected on: a kinder politics, a more caring society. These are Labour values. They're our country's values. And we're going to put these values back into the heart of politics in this country. Therefore, we want to rid Britain of injustice, to make it fairer, more decent, more equal, and I want all our citizens to benefit from prosperity and success. There's nothing good about cutting support for the children of supermarket workers and cleaners. There's nothing good about leaving hundreds of thousands unable to feed themselves, driving them to food banks that have now become an institution. There's nothing good about our Prime Minister wandering around Europe trying to bargain away the workers' protection rights that many have fought for so long. As our conference decided yesterday, we will stand up for that vision of a social Europe, a Europe of unity and solidarity, to defend those rights. I'm proud of our history. I'm proud of the history of ordinary people, the history of courageous people who defied overwhelming odds to fight for the rights and freedoms that we enjoy today. The rights of women to get the vote, those brave women that did so much 100 years ago to get that. The rights and dignity of working people. Our welfare state. The National Health Service, rightly the centre of Danny Boyle's great Olympic opening ceremony. The BBC. The latter two, both great institutions, both under attack by the Tories, both threatened by the idea that profit comes first, not the needs and interests of our people. That's a difference between us and the Tories. So let me make this commitment. Our Labour Party will always put people's interests before profit. Now, I want to say a bit more about how we develop our policy and the review that Angela Eagle has announced this week. Let's start by recognising there is a huge amount of agreement. We start from that thanks to the work that's been done by the National Policy Forum and others. But then we need to be imaginative and recognise the ways our country is changing. In my leadership campaign, I set out some ideas about how we should support small businesses and the self-employed. That's because 1 in 7 of the labour force now work for themselves. Some of them have been driven into it as their only response to keeping an income coming in, insecure though it is. But many people like the independence and flexibility of self-employment that brings to their lives, sense of being your own boss. That's not a bad thing. But with that independence comes insecurity and risk, especially for those on the lowest and most volatile incomes. There's no statutory sick pay if they have an accident at work. There's no statutory maternity pay for women if they become pregnant. They have to spend time chasing bigger firms to pay their invoices on time so they don't slip further into debt. They earn less than other workers. On average, it's just £11,000 a year. And their incomes have now been hit hardest by 5 years of Tory economic failure. So what have the Tories actually done to help the self-employed, the entrepreneurs they claim to represent? They're clobbering them with tax cut credits, and they're going to clobber them again even harder when they bring in universal credit. So I want our policy review to tackle all of this in a serious way and be reflective of what modern Britain is actually like. Our party, Labour, created the welfare state as an expression of a caring society. But all too often, that safety net has big holes in it. People fall through it. And it's not there for the self-employed. It must be. That is the function of a universal welfare state. So we consider opening up statutory maternity and maternity pay to the self-employed so all newborn children get the same level of care from their parents. So I've asked Angela and and Owen Smith, our shadow DWP secretary, to look at ways that we can support the self-employed and help them grow their businesses. I want to take this opportunity to thank Lillian Greenwood, our shadow transport secretary, for the speed and skill with which she's moved on the future of our railways policy. It was wonderful to see Conference this morning agree on our new plan to bring the private franchises into public ownership as they expire. Labour's policy now is to deliver the fully integrated, publicly owned railway the British people want and need. That's a Labour policy. That's one we're going to deliver on. Housing is absolutely top priority policy. Nowhere has the Tory failure been so complete and so damaging. In the last Parliament, at least 500,000 fewer homes were built than were actually needed. Private rents are out of control. A third of private rented homes not meeting basic standards of health and safety. The chance of owning a home a distant dream for the vast majority of young people. There's no answer at all to this housing crisis that doesn't start with, first of all, a new, very large, very active council house building programme. With new homes that are affordable to rent and buy. John Healey, our shadow housing minister, has shown it can pay for itself by making the taxpayer a profit by cutting housing benefit bill by having reasonable rents, not exorbitant rents. And we need new ideas to tackle land hoarding and speculation. These are issues that are so vital to how things go forward in this country. I want a kinder, more caring politics that doesn't tolerate more homelessness, more upheaval for families in temporary accommodation. A secure home is out of reach for millions. John Healey has made a great start on that fundamental review of our housing policies to achieve that. And we're going to achieve that, a decent home for everybody. That is our Labour pledge and Labour aspiration. And we're also going to make mental health a real priority. It's an issue for all of us. Every one of us can have a mental health problem. So let's end the stigma and end the discrimination. And with Luciana Berger, our Shadow Minister of Mental Health, I want to challenge the Tories to make parity of esteem for mental health the reality, not the slogan. That means increased funding, especially for services for children and young people. 3/4 of chronic mental health problems start before the age of 18. Yet, only 1/4 of those people get any of the help they actually need. All our work is important on bringing mental health to the forefront of a public understanding and a public debate. End the stigma, end the discrimination, treat people with mental health conditions as you would wish to be treated yourself. That's our pledge. All our policy work, and there's a lot of policy work to do, will be underpinned by Labour's values. So let's put those values back into politics, the kinder, more caring world that we all want to live in. Since the dawn of history, virtually every human society, there have been people who have given a great deal and many more people who have given little or nothing. Some people have property and power, class and capital, status and clout, which are denied to the many. And time again, the people who receive a great deal tell the many, be grateful to have anything at all. They say the world cannot be changed, and the many must accept the terms on which they're allowed to live in it. These days, this attitude is justified by economic theory. The many, with little or nothing, are told they live in a global economy whose terms cannot be changed. They must accept the place assigned to them by competitive markets. By the way, isn't it really curious that globalization seems to always mean low wages for the poor people, but always used to justify massive payments for top chief executives of global corporations? Our Labour Party came into being more than a century ago to fight that attitude. And it's still what our Labour Party is about. Labour is the voice that says to the many, at home and all around the world, you don't have to take what you're given. Labour says, you may be born poor, but you don't have to stay poor. You don't have to live without power and without hope. You don't have to set limits on your talent and your ambition or those of your children. You don't have to accept prejudice, discrimination, sickness, poverty, or destruction of war. You don't have to be grateful to survive in a world made by others. No, you set the terms for the people in power over you. And you dismiss them when they fail you. That is what democracy is about. That's always been our Labour Party's message. You don't have to take what you're given. It was the great Nigerian writer, who I'm such a huge admirer of, Ben Okri, who wrote perhaps, and put it maybe the best. He said, the most authentic thing about us is our capacity to create, to overcome, to endure, to transform, and to love. Ben Okri, what a genius. But they're at it again. They are at it again, the people who want you to take what you've been given. This Tory government, which was made by the few, and to be quite fair, paid for by the few. Since becoming leader, David Cameron has received £55 million in donations from hedge funds, from people who have a lot. And to be quite honest, they want to keep it all. That's why this prepaid government came into being, to protect the few and tell all the rest of us to accept what we're given. And to prove the honesty of their endeavour, they've already delivered £145 million in tax breaks to the hedge funds in return for that small investment of £55 million. They want us. They expect us to believe there is no alternative to cutting jobs, slashing public services, vandalising the National Health Service, cutting junior doctors' pay, reducing care for the elderly, destroying the hopes of young people for a college education, or putting university graduates into massive debt, putting 500,000 more children in poverty. They want the people of Britain to accept all these things. They expect millions of people to work harder, longer, for a lower quality of life on lower wages. Well, they're not having it. Our Labour Party says no. The British people never have to take what they're given. And they certainly not when it... I'm certainly not. And we certainly don't have to take those kind of messages from Cameron and Osborne. So, conference, I come almost to the end of my first conference speech. And I thank you for listening. So, okay, all right, don't worry. Listen, I've spoken at 37 meetings since Saturday afternoon. Is that not enough? We'll talk later. So I end conference with a quote. The last bearded man to lead the Labour Party was a wonderful, great Scotsman, Keir Hardie. Who died a century ago this weekend, and we commemorated him with a book we launched on Sunday evening. Keir grew up in dreadful poverty and made so much of his life and founded our party, stood up to be counted on votes for women, stood up for social justice, stood up to develop our political party. We owe him and so many more so much. And he kind of was asked once, summarize what you're about? Keir, summarize what you really mean in your life? And he thought for a moment, and he said this: my work has consisted of trying to stir up divine discontent with wrong. What words they are, what brilliance. So I say to you, don't accept injustice. Stand up against prejudice. Let us build a kinder politics, a more caring society together. Let's put our values, the people's values, back into politics. Conference, thank you.